Welcome to this naming convention tutorial for Facebook and Instagram ads. Well, on the surface, it probably sounds a little dry and boring. What we find is that naming conventions are one of the easiest things you can do to not only make it clear to yourself and others what you're promoting, what you're testing, what's going to be tested next. So like if you're running ads yourself, you come back, you know what's happening. But also if you want to hire someone else to run your own ads or to look at your own ads, it becomes very easy without having to click and look into each campaign, each audience, what's happening. The second benefit of a proper naming convention that's very well organized is it lets you actually launch and run ads much, much faster and to compare results much easier. And I'll show you how that works. So not only will this make it easier over time to look at your ads, know what's happening, and let anybody else do the same, you'll also be able to launch and run ads a lot faster. So if you ever wondered, how if you work with someone else, it seems like they can do a lot more. Part of it is experience, but part of it is setting things up correctly in the beginning so that you can very quickly and easily scale a campaign, duplicate ads and ad sets in between, and know exactly what goes where. So let's take a look. So right here, this is a template of a naming convention. So we'll look at this first, and then I'll show you the actual way it would look in real life. So for a campaign, what we like to do, and again, you can take this and use it however you want. What's most important is not the actual naming conventions we use, but the theory and strategy behind it. So if you find a different way to do it, as long as you apply it consistently and it's pretty easy for someone else to just look at and intuitively know what's happening, that's the key. But this is how we do it, and we found it works really well for managing, clients or teaching others to manage their own ads. If they're just doing $500 or $1,000 a month, or working with clients that we work with who are doing $10,000 of ad spend or more a month. We've used this strategy, on clients at the $10,000 a month range up to several $100,000 a month range. And for all of those sizes, it makes it much, much faster to manage their ads. So here's how it's set up. The type of offer, and then we use a colon. But again, the details here aren't as important as the whole view of it. So type of offer, this could be an opt-in. This could be, video training. You could also do something here. Instead of an opt-in, it could be content video, blog post. It doesn't have to always be an opt-in, but you want to know really quickly, like what are we promoting here? What's the major category we're promoting? And then we put the promotion name in, so we kind of have an easy way to always come back and look at what we were doing. So it could be the webinar name, an opt-in name, the video name, anything like that. It's just something you would recognize or anybody on your team could easily recognize versus something else you're running. It doesn't have to be the entire full name. Could be shorthand as long as it's recognizable to you and other people. And then here we usually do parentheses, goal, colon, and then in here, the optimization objective changes. What goes in here is what you're telling Facebook at the ad set level you're going to be doing. So, at the campaign level, you can choose conversion, link clicks, whatever. And then at the ad set level, if it's a conversion, you choose the actual conversion. So what you'd put here, if it's an opt-in campaign and you want Facebook to optimize for conversions, this would say conversion. If this was a content video and the goal was to get as many video views as possible, the goal would be video views. Again, this is just helpful so that at a glance, you or someone else could come in here and immediately know what is happening with this campaign. What are we trying to do? So what should I be paying attention to in the metrics? And you have to type these names out anyway to launch ads. So you might as well put 2 seconds of thought into naming them in a very specific way because it saves a ton of time down the road. So the way we typically like to name our ad sets is to describe the major features of that audience. You don't have to describe every little detail, but if you're changing things from the default settings, we usually like to put something in. So LLA, that's just how we describe lookalikes. I've seen people use LA, although LA can also be confused with the city, and we do like to put in what geographic targeting we're doing. So we just shorthand it to lookalike LLA. And so then the lookalike of whatever the custom audience name is. So it could be email list, website visitors, video view audience, whatever. Time frame, if it's applicable. So it could be website. If this was a lookalike of website visitors, this would be last 30, meaning last 30 days, last 15. You can do all the way up to the last 180 days. So that's what we would put here, whatever the time frame of that custom audience was. And then the size percentage. So what is the size percentage of this look like? 1%, 2, 3, all the way up to 10. That's important because later you might want to test different percentage size lookalikes, and it's good to know really quickly if they're all named the same, but just the percentage is different. You can put them side by side in your reporting. Other things that you could put in here. So we use these parallel bars as spacers. You could use dashes, whatever you want. Location. So, if you default to targeting one region, you don't necessarily need to always put that in. Say you're always targeting the US or Canada or wherever you live, and that's your main audience. You could just leave that blank. But if you're trying something different than the norm, so say you're in the US and you're typically targeting the US, you wouldn't put it in if it's a US audience, but maybe you're adding in a Canadian audience. So you could say USA plus Canada or just Canada. Or if you want to do regional targeting and target by city or zip code, you would put some of that information in there. And the goal is not to get so specific that this name becomes so long it's unreadable, but enough information for you to very quickly know the difference between ad sets. Other things that could go in here is gender, if you're doing some kind of gender split between male and female. Age range, if you're not targeting by age range, you don't need to put anything in. Same with gender. You could just default to, whatever your standard is. But say it's 25 and over or 25 to 54, put that in there. And then lastly, you might be doing all placements, but sometimes we will focus on a specific placement. And so if that's the case, we'll put in here what actually is what audience and what placement we're using. So this could be just stories, so Facebook and Instagram stories, just IG stories. Could be news feeds, meaning Facebook and Instagram news feeds, or just one or the other. Super helpful later to come back and quickly see without having to look at all, your further breakdowns to tell what you were doing. And then when you get to the ad level, there's a lot happening here, but the very first thing you should look at are these four. So we like to do copy, meaning ad copy, and image, meaning what image. So copy one, copy one, image two. So same pieces of copy, different images. And here, same pieces of copy, different images. But these images would match image one, and copy one would match. Now, people use copy because of ad copy. We find though that can be confusing because when you duplicate one of these, it adds a dash copy to it. So we usually use variation one, variation two for the varieties of ad copy, and then we shorten that to VAR. But that's just our house style. But I will show you, it's once you have naming conventions that match, and you should be really careful that across ad sets, across campaigns, unless it's a totally different promotion, you're trying to match so that image one is always the same image two is always the same image, because then it becomes really easy to alter this. So I could click copy to image one, and I could copy this one. And I know these two have the same pieces of copy. So when I go to edit it, I can actually edit them at the same time because the copy is the same. The images will show up as saying different, but as long as you're just editing copy, it won't overwrite the images. It makes it really easy to change things. And you can see down here, the way I did this video, that's how we typically do the copy part, var1 for variation of copy one. The other thing that's really helpful is once you had more campaigns running. So if we took a look here, say you had a lot more campaigns running, and I'll show you in the specific example next. You could actually do a search and say, I wonder how copy, so like say this ad's doing well, this ad's doing well, but I could actually do a search within this and say, how is copy 2 doing regardless of image? And then my total results would show up here. So this is a way kind of to see how different pieces of your creative are working. And it makes it really easy to manage and navigate. Down here, you can see that if we're just doing a story ad, so there's no real copy, it's all on the image or video already. We just do story 1, story 2, story 3. If it's a video, instead of doing IMG for image, we would do vid 1, vid 2, vid 3. And again, you can make your naming convention your own. We typically don't like to be descriptive, at least initially, in our creative, because our goal is to test a lot and see what's working best. And it takes time, and it can be confusing to describe each image in detail. So instead, we use these. And then if we're doing everything correctly, hopefully in our Drive folder or your Dropbox folder, wherever you manage your images, you're also labeling them 1, 2, 3. So it's really easy for you to coordinate and figure out what's working best. Later, if you have an image that's working really well or a piece of copy, you could rename these to be more descriptive. So you just know. But until you know a winner, it's better just to use this across everything. So let's see how this works in action. Now, to get a little meta with it here, this actually, we're about to launch ads promoting the specific opt-in. So I'll show you the naming convention that we would use to do this. So here it is. So for us, if you're working with someone else or an agency, I recommend at least putting in some initials of who is running your ads. So for us, IS means intentional spark. So all of our clients get this in there. And what that allows us to do and them to do is later they can review all campaigns with IS in it. And also, if any future agency works with a client of ours or we take over from an existing agency, if it's labeled like this, we can see what that last agency did, kind of figure out their naming conventions by just comparing who's doing what. So for us, that's what we do. If you're running your own ads, you don't need to do that. But just a little tip if someone else is going to be running your ads for you. So here, the opt-in that you currently just joined is the opt-in naming convention tutorial. And so we've labeled it like that. And the goal is conversions. And if you come in here, we have 4 different ad sets set up. And so I'll walk through all of them and how they actually work. So this one is pretty basic. LLA stands for lookalike, like we discussed. It's a lookalike of our email list, and it's a 3% lookalike size. It's just targeting women, ages 25 plus. Here's a interest-based audience, INT for interest, : it's email software and project management software. Ages 25 plus. And so what we like to do to be super specific with our interests is I don't want to list out email software could be multiple emails, Infusionsoft, ActiveCampaign, ConvertKit, Aweber, MailChimp. I don't want to write all those out. So I just say general email software. And then for project management software, it could be Trello, Asana, Basecamp, whatever comes up as an interest that I put in here. But this gives me a broad category. And when we say and, it means we're putting both in as interests. So another way we could do this would be if we wanted to say, instead of and project management software, we want email software and then exclude anybody who's interested in project management software. I don't know why we would do that, but that could be something we do. So then I would just put in email software, less PM software. If we wanted to combine both and just say anybody who's interested in email software or PM software, we could write in plus, or you could write in or, some way for you to know what's happening. And then you could combine those strings together. That's just something I find to be very convenient and a quick way to look at how you're building these audiences. And then up here, you can see we have these 2 audiences are actually the exact same, except one is a lookalike of anybody who's engaged with a post or ad in the last 30 days, the lookalike of 2%, ages 25 plus. And this ad is going out into newsfeeds, so the Facebook and Instagram newsfeeds. This one, though, is just going to stories. The reason you might split up by placement is if you're seeing really good results with stories and you want it kind of to optimize on its own for the best story versus having all the creative in one and getting split out. It's a way to go. Not always the best thing to do, but there are some reasons you'd do it. So that's how we'd split it up by placement if we were going to demonstrate it. So now we're back to seeing all our ad sets. And here's where it becomes interesting is now we have all these ad sets and a lot of campaigns. And so because you have your naming conventions down correctly, say I caught a typo in the first version of my ad copy. What I could do is I could then search by ad name for copy 1. And it would pull up all ads in the ad sets that were selected. And you can see these are all the versions of copy. And then if I click edit and scroll down to the copy section, I actually could update the copy since it's all the same. And I've been careful to make sure it's the same. And it wouldn't change the images. Additionally, you can do the same thing to search for your results. If you had your ads running for a couple of weeks, you could see what version of copy, no matter what the image or even video is, has done best overall, and then take action from there. This also becomes really easy to duplicate and to make changes. Say just I wanted to turn everything off. You could just edit this and select turn everything off. So it makes it super simple and very clear for anybody else coming in here what's running. So that's how we set this up, and it makes it incredibly efficient once you have it named correctly. I highly recommend you start from the beginning like this. It makes it really easy for anybody else to come in. And also, once you've been running ads for a little bit for yourself, you'll notice you start to get confused by things you're running. You can't remember, why did I run that when? How is this audience different from that audience? This makes it really clear what you were doing and how it works. And the default budget in here is $20 per day. Maybe that's all you're spending in an ad set. That's perfectly fine. We do the same strategy, spending $500, $1,000 or more per day per audience, and it works just the same. And even better because we have a lot more ad sets and a lot more creative running. So you need to be organized like this to make it work. Give this a try and see how that works. And then if you want to, you can email us at tonyr@intentionalspark.com, TONYR@intentionalspark.com, to ask any follow-up questions, get help. If you want, share a screen share of your setup. If you have questions about how, if you're doing it correctly, we'll be happy to respond and answer. Thanks.